simple. That morning was like any other. The kettle was whistling, steam curling up and catching the early sunlight through the kitchen window. I was standing there, watching the toast pop up, the smell of coffee already filling the air. My wife was at the dining table, scrolling on her phone. Her brother, who'd been living with us for a while, was still in bed. He's not exactly an early riser. Our life had a rhythm. It's not perfect, not glamorous, but comfortable. I'd head to work, she'd handle the house, and her brother. Well, he was figuring things out. I didn't mind it. Families help each other, right? That's what I told myself. Sure, the bills were creeping up, groceries disappearing faster, electricity humming longer into the night, water always running somewhere in the house. But it didn't feel like a problem yet. It's just something to keep an eye on. I remember looking around the kitchen that morning and thinking, we've got a good thing here. If we all chip in, this could work just fine. I really believed that. I still see the day he moved in. The weather was warm, the kind of sticky summer heat that makes your shirt cling to your back. I helped him carry boxes up the stairs, my wife laughing as we tried to maneuver his old couch through the doorway. Everyone was smiling. We ordered pizza that night, sat on the floor surrounded by half-open boxers, and it felt good, like we were starting something that would bring us closer. Back in the present, I set 2 mugs of coffee on the table and joined my wife. She smiled at me, and for a moment, everything felt in place. I had no idea how quickly it would all start to unravel. It was late. One of those nights where the house is so quiet you can hear the refrigerator humming in the background. My wife and her brother were asleep. I was at the kitchen table, hunched over a pile of bills that seemed to grow every month. The soft yellow light above me cast these long, stretched shadows across the table. My coffee had gone cold, but I kept taking small sips anyway, mostly out of habit. The calculator clicked in my hand, each tap echoing just a little too loud in the silence. Electricity. Up again. Groceries. Way higher than last month. Water bill. Almost double. I stared at the numbers like maybe they'd magically change if I looked long enough. Maybe they just don't notice, I told myself. People aren't trying to be wasteful, right? But the truth was right there in front of me. The numbers didn't care about intentions. I could see little moments in my head, the kitchen. Light left on all night, the TV playing to an empty room, the fridge door hanging open while someone scrolled through their phone deciding what to eat. And then there were the packages. Cardboard boxes stacking up by the front door like a mini wall, each one a reminder of money going somewhere. But not from me. I rubbed my temples and leaned back in the chair. We weren't broke, not yet. But this was the kind of pattern that sneaks up on you. 1 month, you're fine. The next, you're staring at an empty bank account, wondering what happened. Some part of me thought this should be an easy fix, a simple conversation. Just a reminder for everyone to be mindful. I didn't realize how wrong I'd be. It was a Sunday afternoon. It's a kind of slow day where the sun hangs a little longer in the sky and the house feels almost too quiet. My wife was scrolling on her phone in the living room, her brother, lounging on the couch with some TV show murmuring in the background. I figured this was as good a time as any. No one was rushing off to work. No one was already in a bad mood. Just a calm, ordinary afternoon. I walked in, trying to keep my voice even, almost casual. Hey, could we try cutting down on unnecessary expenses, just to keep things balanced? It was simple, polite, the kind of thing you'd say to a roommate, friend, a family member, because that's what we all were now, family. I thought they'd nod, maybe talk about ways to save money, maybe even joke about it. I remembered. When my wife and I used to sit at this same dining table, talking through everything. Big decisions, small inconveniences, dreams we couldn't quite afford yet but loved to imagine anyway. Back then, we were a team. There was no mine and yours, only ours, back in the present. I pulled out a chair and sat with them, leaning forward just slightly. I wanted this to feel like a conversation, not a confrontation. My tone was calm, my words careful. I could see her brother glance at me, then down at the TV remote. He didn't say anything, just waited for her to respond. And I waited too. Thinking this was going to be quick, painless, maybe even productive, I had no idea this was the moment the ground would start to shift under my feet. At first, there was silence. A couple of seconds, maybe 3, where I thought she was just processing what I'd said. Then it happened. Her head snapped up, eyes sharp, and her voice, it wasn't loud at first, but it had that edge, the kind that tells you it's about to cut deep. "Why are you acting like this? You're making my brother feel uncomfortable. You're treating him like some kind of burden." I just blinked. For a second, I thought maybe I'd misheard her. Wait, what? How did we jump to this? Her brother froze, his body sinking just a little into the couch. He didn't look at me, just stared down at the remote in his hands, like maybe if he focused hard enough, he could disappear. I tried to keep my voice calm, to explain, but she wasn't done. Words tumbled out fast, defensive, accusing. Suddenly, this wasn't about bills or expenses anymore. It was about me being controlling. It's about me not respecting her family. My mind went back to other moments, small but telling. It's like the time her brother borrowed my car without asking, and when I brought it up, she brushed it off. He's family. Don't make a big deal. Or the time he broke a lamp I liked, and she laughed, saying, "He didn't mean to. It's fine." She always took his side. Always. I just didn't think it mattered this much. Until now, back in the present, her voice kept rising. My heart pounded, not from anger yet, but from confusion. This was supposed to be a conversation about saving money. That's it. Instead, I was standing trial for something I didn't even know I'd done. The kettle whistle from the kitchen started up again, only this time, it wasn't comforting. It felt like a scream in the distance, something I couldn't shut off. Her voice didn't just rise, it sharpened. The words started coming faster, heavier, each one hitting harder than the last. "You're so selfish. You don't care about my family." I sat there, staring at her, wondering how we had gotten so far from the point. I wasn't asking for much, wasn't kicking anyone out. I just wanted us to be smart about money, fair, balanced, but in her eyes that somehow made me the villain. If caring about our finances makes me the bad guy, then what am I? The thought kept circling in my head like a broken record. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, eyes locked on me like she was waiting for a defense I couldn't give. Because what was I supposed to say? That I didn't care about family? That would be a lie. I cared enough to help her brother when he had nowhere else to go. Cared enough to open my home, my wallet, my life. I remembered our wedding day. Her hand in mine, the vows we made to support each other no matter what. Back then, no matter what meant through hard times, through the small struggles life throws at you. It didn't mean sacrificing my voice, my say, my role in the partnership. It didn't mean being told I was selfish for wanting to protect the life we built. Back in the present, I realized my hands were clenched tight on the edge of the table. My coffee sat untouched, the steam long gone. My eyes felt heavy, like the room itself had dimmed. I didn't say much after that. Partly because I didn't want to make it worse, mostly because I wasn't sure I had the words to explain how much hers had already done. The days after that argument didn't explode. They just... quiet. Not the kind of quiet that feels peaceful. This was a heavy, brittle kind of silence. We spoke, but only when it was necessary. Pass the salt, the mail's on the counter, dinner's ready. Every word felt like it had to pass through some invisible wall before it reached the other person. I started noticing how I moved through the house differently, slower, quieter, like I didn't want to disturb anything, or anyone. I wasn't sure if it was out of consideration, or because I'd already started feeling like I didn't belong. Most nights I'd hear laughter coming from the living room. My wife and her brother talking about some show or something funny online. I'd be in the other room, pretending to be busy with emails or scrolling my phone. But really I was just listening. Not to the words, but to the sound of being left out. I remembered when that laughter used to include me. Friday nights with all 3 of us squeezed onto the couch, ordering takeout, arguing over which movie to watch. My wife's head resting on my shoulder, her brother making some sarcastic comment that had us all in stitches. Back then, I was part of the picture. Now, I was just on the other side of the frame. After a while, I stopped trying to join in. The gap had grown too wide, and every attempt to cross it felt more awkward than the last. The house still smelled. The same coffee in the morning, laundry detergent on Sunday nights. but it didn't feel the same. Somehow the air between us had changed, and I was starting to realize that maybe this wasn't just about money anymore. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. I was working from home, trying to focus, when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find another package. Big, heavy, and definitely not cheap. I didn't even have to check the label to know it wasn't for me. I carried it inside and set it on the table, staring at it like it was some kind of ticking clock. The cardboard felt rough under my fingers. The shipping tape stretched tight. I could hear her in the living room, laughing with her brother over something on his phone. That's when something inside me just snapped. I walked in, package in hand, and put it down harder than I meant to. "We talked about this," I said, my voice already louder than it should have been. "I've been trying to keep us afloat here, but this isn't helping." Her smile faded instantly, replaced by that same defensive glare I'd seen before. She didn't back down. "If you have such a problem with it, maybe you should be the one to leave." For a second I thought I'd misheard, but no, she meant it. I remembered when this house felt like our home, painting the walls together, picking out furniture we both loved, celebrating our first night here with takeout on the living room floor. Back then, it was the two of us building something. Now, it felt like I was just a guest who'd overstayed. His welcome. Back in the moment, I could feel the heat in my chest, the tightness in my jaw. My hands slammed down on the table, the sound echoing through the room. I wasn't just frustrated about the money anymore. I was angry about what this had turned into. I didn't say much else, because when someone tells you to leave, they've already told you where you stand. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed long after the lights were out. She was asleep. Beside me, her breathing steady, like nothing had happened. I stared at the ceiling, my mind running through every possible path forward. Stay and live with the tension, the cold shoulders, the feeling that I didn't belong in my own home, or leave and face the reality that this marriage might already be over. Neither choice felt like winning, but I kept coming back to one truth. Love can feel like a trap when respect is gone. You tell yourself you're staying because you care, but sometimes you're just staying because you're afraid to admit it's over. Maybe leaving isn't. Losing, maybe it's saving myself. I remembered our last real vacation together, before the bills, before her brother moved in, before all of this. We were at the beach, barefoot in the sand, laughing about nothing in particular. The sun was setting, and I remember thinking, this is my person, this is my home. Strange how you can go from that kind of certainty to this, back in the present. The rain had started tapping against the bedroom window. I got up, quietly pulled a small bag from the closet, and began to pack. Not everything, just enough. Enough to leave without turning it into a fight. Every zipper felt heavier than it should. Every folded shirt felt like a small goodbye. By the time the bag was ready, the rain outside had turned steady, washing over the quiet streets. It almost felt like the world was telling me, go. The morning I left, the house was quiet except for the sound of the TV in the living room. She and her brother were watching something, voices low, laughter now and then. I stood in the bedroom, bag over my shoulder, listening to it like someone standing outside a party they weren't invited to. I sat at the small desk by the window and wrote a note. Just a few lines. No accusations, no begging. I told her I needed space, that I couldn't keep living in a place where I felt like a stranger. I left it folded on the bed right where she'd see it. There was no shouting, no slamming doors, just quiet. I walked through the hallway, past family photos that suddenly felt like relics from another life. I remembered the first time I opened that door for her, the day we got the keys. She walked in, smiling, eyes bright, carrying a small plant in one hand and our future in the other. I remember thinking this door would always open to love. It was closing on something I couldn't save. At the front door, I paused for a second. My hand rested on the knob, the weight of everything pressing down on my chest. Then I turned the key. The click felt final, almost louder than it should have been. I stepped outside. The air was cool, the pavement damp from last night's rain. The wheels of my suitcase rattled softly as I walked down the driveway, each step taking me further from what used to be home. No one called out, no one followed. And maybe that was my answer. It's been a few weeks now. My mornings are quieter, but in a different way. No tension humming in the air, no feeling like I'm intruding in my own space, just quiet. I've had time to think, to replay everything in my head, and I keep coming back to one simple truth. I wasn't wrong for asking for fairness. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't selfish. I was just trying to protect what we had. But here's the thing I learned. Love without respect isn't really love. It's an illusion you cling to because you're afraid of what comes after. I kept thinking if I tried harder, if I spoke softer, if I bent a little more, maybe things would go back to the way they were. But respect, once it's gone, it doesn't just walk back through the door. I think about that first morning coffee we shared in our kitchen, the steam curling up, her hand brushing mine as we reached for the sugar. Back then, that moment felt like the start of everything. I didn't know then that one day I'd be drinking coffee alone, remembering it like a scene from someone else's life. Now, I wake up in a small apartment. The walls are bare, but they're mine. The coffee pot still makes that little sputtering sound, the mug still warms my hands, and the sunrise still spills across the counter like it's trying to tell me something. There's more ahead, and maybe that's enough for now.